Loss of consciousness is the sine qua non of a major neurological insult. Yet we are aware that the brain can be operated upon with the patient conscious, cooperative, and coherent. Consciousness is the primary ingredient of cognition. Today we will discuss intelligence and cognition and how consciousness is lost and how it gets restored. We all know that there are anecdotal reports of the return of consciousness in individuals after prolonged coma. We offer a hypothesis for understanding this phenomenon. Coma can be broadly defined as unresponsiveness. Responsiveness involves intelligence. Responsive intelligence is the elixir of life. All living beings are intelligent, unicellular organisms. Seek succulence and withdraw from toxins. Plants grow their roots to water and present leaves to sunlight for photosynthesis. Intelligence has got three facets. The first facet is of information assimilation and archival or storage. Information from the environment is garnered and then edited and essential bits stored as information. Information processing is the cognitive process where the archived information is analyzed. And then we have action initiation, the executive arm of intelligence. In coma, information assimilation ceases. There is an afferent failure. Information processing comes to a standstill. This is little ambiguous because we are not exactly sure that information processing or cognition comes to a standstill in coma. And there is an absence of a responsive response. Let us have a quick peek into the physiology and the anatomy of intelligence, starting with information acquisition or information assimilation and archival. Sensory portals allow inflows of information. This information fled as a selective bias. Our eyes swivel towards objects of interest. We listen to what we want to hear. From sensory portals, information is transferred to the sensory cortex. This information transmission is through the synaptic maze. Synapses transfer information in a variant of the Boolean code. Instead of just 0 and 1, gradation of strength and temporal correlates along with the spatial orientation of a synapse allow for more detailed coding of information. En route to the cortex, there is a certain prioritization. Hazard impulses will be acted upon by reflexes at the level of the thalamus. Even later, templates of interest ensure some innate and cultivated prioritization of impulses. At the sensory cortex, this edited information is registered. Registered information is now sent to the association cortices for recognition. Recognition occurs by template comparisons. Information now moves on to the hippocampus. Here, a memory sachet is created by multimodality integration of different sensory inputs. On the beach, the turbulent sea we see, the crash of waves we hear, and the smell of adventure is in the air. These are correlated. Time and space correlates are added and spiced with emotional correlates. Memory sachet remains in the hippocampus till we rest. During sleep, in the first phase, that is short wave sleep or non-rapid eye movement sleep, memory modules are transferred to the neocortex for archival. This transfer occurs in waves called thalamocortical spindles. Information which reaches the frontal cortex is in an abstract form and coded in language. This language coded information abstracts in the frontal cortex are key to human cognitive superiority. Information to the parietal cortices is multimodality. At the neocortex, information passes from the synaptic maze intraneuronally. Here we have resilient storage, molecularly coded archives which store information. The second facet of intelligence is cognitive appraisal. Incoming information interacts with archived information. Aspects of self, character, values, these analyze the information from each perspective. Now action plans are formulated. We have decision making. Information is all around us. Knowledge is information that is cemented by application. And wisdom is knowledge tempered with values. Now let us move on to the third phase, the facet of action. We have the primary motor cortex, which controls individual muscle contractions. We have accessory motor cortices, which save sequences for walking, sequences for talking, trained sequences like driving, cycling, even singing, and cognitive sequences, or sequences which involve technical training like performing surgery. Each movement is perused by the basal ganglia and edited for strength and speed of contraction. The cerebellum, meanwhile, provides for coordination. What happens in neurological injuries? Ultimately, there is either neuronal loss or there is axonal dysfunction. Neuronal insults are primarily hypoxic or metabolic. Increased intracranial pressure, which compromises cerebral perfusion pressure. A failure of autoregulation, which results in perfusion requirement mismatches, or a vascular cutoff, as occurs in a stroke, can result in neurological loss, neuronal loss. Axonal dysfunction occurs classically in inertial injuries. They also occur in demyelinations, either by osmotic or by inflammatory mechanisms. Insults to an axon range from a reversible conduction failure without a structural distortion to microskeletal damage results in what is called axonal varicosities and ultimately in axonal ruptures, which are characterized histologically by axonal retraction bulbs. Let us briefly consider how consciousness is maintained and how it is lost. The switch for consciousness resides in the brainstem. Consciousness networks in the brainstem include the ascending reticular activating system and other systems. A stretch of the brainstem results in loss of consciousness, and this usually occurs by inertial mechanisms. In trivial injuries, axons in the brainstem start to function again. The eyes open, but at that time we don't see. Soon as the connections with the thalamus are re-established, senses start to be perceived. Now cortical perception starts. As recovery continues, the hippocampus starts registering information again. The period of post-traumatic amnesia is now officially over. Finally, the connections to the neocortex are restored. Cognition restarts. How is function restored? In most insults, there are areas of cortex which are preserved intact. These can be called as the islands of information. These are not accessible because connectivity has been lost. In various time periods, reconnection might occur. This occurs by neosynaptogenesis or the creation of new synapses. It also occurs when connectivity neurons are restored. Anecdotal reports of restoration of functions after prolonged coma probably involve reconnections of the islands of information, reconnections to the functional cortex. So if reconnections can be achieved, cognition, whatever is left of it, can be restored.